It really is. I hope it will make it exciting. It's I personally get excited when Medicare patients come in our office. So hopefully we can do the same for everyone else by the time this hour you're going to spend with us is over. So.
Yeah, we get excited for some of the Medicare TRICARE patients because the TRICARE picks up the balance, so we get paid more. So we get real excited with those patients.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Rich, it's 8 o'clock here in Florida. Yeah, I guess got on and we'll just get started. Welcome everyone to Medicare, Why It's So Important in Your Dental Practice. And the first slide we have on this, I really think is maybe one of the most important, at least the concept, that we don't want you to be afraid of Medicare. I mean, we're not kidding when we say in DS3 we have a little symbol that shows when the patient has Medicare. When I see that on their chart, I am legitimately excited because some of the guesswork's taken out of medical billing. We know they have coverage. Usually they're good candidates for other reasons. And I don't know, I think people are afraid of Medicare. Do you get that impression as you talk to people across the country, Rich?
I do, and I'm with you, Guy. I think part of that is you don't know what you don't know, and you may have heard a horror story or something like that, and that horror story may be 10 years old. So, and I may have started it 10 years ago, but it's not bad now. At least what we like about Medicare is we know what the sidelines are, right? And if we play by their rules, it's pretty predictable. So we just got to learn what the rules.
And they have the rules laid out, and we're going to go through those with you today, and we're available to help further if you need more clarification. But the rules are pretty simple, and we're going to lay them out for you. And I think I think, Rich, this is probably one of the biggest misconceptions when I lecture all across the country, and you do as well. I think you were in Kentucky last week giving a talk, and you mentioned Medicare. Being from Kentucky originally, I know there's a lot of Medicaid patients in eastern Kentucky where I grew up, and people think those are one and the same, and they're not at all. I think we want to clarify that here.
Yeah, remember, it's just a federal health insurance program. So hopefully someday, Guy, you and I will both be Medicare patients, right? We live to be 65. Yep. So that's not too far away from me now. But yeah, it's just 65. You can get Medicare earlier, but you got to be pretty much disabled, to do that. So, but that's a good point that you make, Guy. It's not welfare, and it's not Medicaid type of thing.
Yeah, I think we have everybody muted except for, I think it might be one of our team members that are on here. So I think I took care of them. Can you still talk for me there, Rich?
Test 1, 2, 3.
I think it was one of our team members that was unmuted. So I think we're good there. So sorry about the feedback we had. But yeah, again, Medicare is not Medicaid. Providing for these people, most of these people have worked their whole lives, and they're in their retirement, and they're good people, and they deserve your help too. So it's not only profitable, it's the right thing to do. And speaking of profit, this came out. We saw this just recently in Dr. Bicuspid production or publication rather, September 25th. So very recently, and we've been noting that the production of dental offices has been going down over the last 8 or 10 years. And even when you look at the production per chair from 2010 at $88 down to $59 in 2016. So this is a trend we're seeing, and what it's resulting in is a decrease in dentist net earnings. If you can see, here's where a dentist used to be their net earnings. Now their net earnings about what year is that there? 2013. This is a few years old, but way back in the heyday when we were at the height, about 2006, we're at 215 our net earnings. So over those period of years, we're down $34,000 net. Our production per chair is down, and we're talking about Medicare billing. But again, don't be afraid of it. It's one thing that makes us happy. And what makes us happy is we can help our patients. We can help good patients who need our help, and we can get paid for it. And there's nothing you can do in your practice to add more income more quickly to the per chair income and the overall practice net income than adding dental sleep to your practice. I mean, you can look at the examples here. Rich probably does this 48 devices in a week, but well, that's probably exaggeration. But you might do that in a month on occasion. But dental offices, you do one a week you're adding, pushing 6 figures. You do one every other week. You can see the numbers here yourself, and we're not playing with these numbers at all, Rich. I think we're pretty conservative. Don't you agree on the price, the average dollars per device and lab and insurance billing fees?
Absolutely. I mean, the lab costs have been under control pretty much, not going up much. The good news in general is that, medical insurance is paying for this more and more and more these days. Medicare is really kind of out in the front with this, which they aren't always, but in this particular case, they are. So, like you said, Guy, I'm not sure that, anything other than knowledge of this is what's keeping most dentists from doing this. So we're going to lay it out for you tonight. Guy has put together a really good PowerPoint for you here. I'm the guy on the right without the hair. And, Guy and I met, 10 years ago now, and we started Dental Sleep Solutions to help dentists do this. So we're both wet finger dentists. We do this every day in our practices, and we've been doing it for a long time. So I think we can help you.
Yeah, and this is our mission statement. We're the most trusted, innovative, and customer-focused provider of solutions in dental sleep medicine. And that's what we get up every day, not only to help our patients, but we have a whole team that helps through what we call the DS3 experience, which we provide education, coaching, software, and the support you need for what we call the 4 pillars of dental sleep, which we're going to talk a little bit more about on our next webinar. Those 4 pillars being screening, testing, treating, and billing. And today we're going to focus on billing. I already see some questions coming in. We're typing answers to those as we go. We'll stay on to answer as many questions as you want. And if you want to learn more about dental sleep, we do courses all over the country. We're putting together next year's course schedule as we speak, but we don't typically do a lot over the holidays. So this is our last one coming up here November 17th in Dallas of the year. So if you want to come to this course, just type in course, and we'll actually give you a discount on that course. It's already very reasonably, fees are very, very reasonable. Let me see what is going on. Everybody mute.
Test.
Yeah, there's some other people that are talking there, and I think we have all the attendees muted, so I don't know where that's coming from. Anyway, so if you want to come to the course, let us know. Type in course, and we will give you some a discount of $50 on the upcoming course. And then hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. After Thanksgiving, we're going to talk about some treatment flow. Because I think part of this, if we can get you paid through Medicare, and you have those patients in your practice, how do we find these patients, and how do we put them into our dental practice along with crowns and everything else that we need to do, and how we do consultations and documentation's different, and so we'll walk through the steps in a dental office to help the flow much better. So. That'll be, we're going to we usually do these about every other week. We'll probably be 3 weeks from now because I'm sure everybody has the time to spend with their families on Thanksgiving. So is this how most people feel, Rich, when you tell them you're going to start doing medical billing?
I will say that's how my office manager felt the first time I told her that. So hopefully we have some staff on here tonight. Jason, if you're listening, will you make sure that everybody on our staff is muted there?
I think it's the insurance feedback. Yeah, the insurance team is coming through, I believe, or someone there is coming through. So, yes, go ahead.
But yeah, hopefully we've got some, people besides dentists on here tonight. I mean, most dentists go, hey, Vicki, will you figure out how to do Medicare, And this is how they feel. You got to understand that if you're the dentist. And if you're the office manager, you're the billing person in your practice, and you're here tonight, you're in the right place. I mean, there's no doubt that you're going to learn something tonight.
Absolutely. And I think part of this is getting the concept that this is different. And a lot of the team members that we see are logged in this evening. And, you're probably comfortable with all these things. You and your dental team doing injections, doing root canals. Maybe we might want to put a rubber dam on that one. But other than that, we're pretty comfortable sticking a file into a nerve of a tooth. Doesn't bother us. But what would happen if we said, hey, the pilot comes in the back of the plane and says, hey, the flight attendant comes back and says the pilot just croaked. Will you fly the plane? You might get a little nervous because you don't do that every day, and you don't know how to maybe build your own house or do your own plumbing. And I mean, really, you've heard us say this before if you've been on our webinars. The best thing you can do is get help. And we're not saying that just to pass the buck or to promote our services. Medical billing is totally different from dental billing. And the actual process of the billing, if you try to do it yourself, the vast majority of dental offices will fail doing that. Good news is there's great offices, sorry, not offices, but great companies that do third-party billing that we're affiliated with, and we can help you do this. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to just leave it at that and say, have a good night, we'll collect your CE. You still have to understand the concepts here to do the billing. The actual submitting and following the billing, you might want to leave to a third party. So we're going to walk you through Medicare, what it means, how much they pay, and then really a real case example of how you might collect your portion for Medicare and the portion from the patient. So, Rich, not much has changed in this. And Medicare, how long have they been playing? About 7-8 years now, maybe a little bit more?
Yeah, not too long. I mean, it's mostly recent history, and we'll go over some of these acronyms we hear that you see here. Remember the treatment code that we use is E as in Edgar 0486. That's for the custom-made dental device. And the LCD is what, Guy? The local coverage determination? Or, yeah. So these are the different regions of this and Medicare and things like that. So we're just going to kind of lay it out for you tonight, and so we can get a really good feel for what's going on.
Yeah, we'll go through what each region pays. There's 4 LCDs, and those slides are coming up next, I think. But just to understand, whatever the allowable amount is in any given region, Medicare pays 80% of that. Minus what I learned a little bit as I dug into this a little bit more is a 2% what they call sequestration fee. And that's a fee that the Medicare takes off. So it's not exactly 80, it's a little less than 80%, and I've got the amounts for it. And now the patient's responsible for the other 20% or maybe more than 20%, depending on whether you're a participating or non-participating provider, which we'll go over in a little bit. So we'll talk about how both of those work. So again, when we show these fees, 80% is what the Medicare covers the patient, or most people have supplemental insurance, secondary insurance that actually covers at least a portion of their 20%. And we'll talk about the 2 Medicare devices that we do for our patients. They have to be Medicare approved. There's really only 2 of them that we recommend. So I'm just going to walk through these jurisdictions slowly. If you don't get a chance to jot these down for your area, you're more than welcome to just type in consult at any point, or just email us, and we'll be happy to meet with you to clarify anything that we talked about tonight. If there's something you just don't quite understand, just type in consultation, and one of our team members will answer your questions at an appointment that we can set up after tonight. So here in jurisdiction A, so the total allowable amounts, 1814, almost 1815. So that 20% is that second line there. That's roughly 1422.94 after that 2%.
I'd say 80%, right? 80%.
I said 20%. Thank you, Rich, for catching that. It's late tonight. The 20% is the 363. So those are your numbers for the region there that you can see. I'm not in A. I'm not in B, unfortunately. It's a 1354, almost 1355, and you can see the 80 and 20% respectively there. I'll leave that up for just a moment. These have changed over the years, and I'm assuming they will change in the future. But for the last few years, it's been pretty stable. These is where they've been. And unfortunately, Rich and I both live in jurisdiction C, which is the lowest paying region. I live in Florida and practice in Florida, and Rich is in Texas. So we're about 1,070 allowable amount. And then you can see the 80 and the 20% there if you're in this region. And then maybe we should move to this region, Rich. We can get another $370 a case without doing much but moving where we live. And, we can probably get cheaper real estate in some of these states up here.
I guarantee you there's some
maybe not in California, but there's some states I bet are less expensive to live in than Texas and Florida there. But
yeah, and there's no rhyme or reason to this either, Guy.
No.
They're different insurers that manage these different jurisdictions. So we've basically broken them down into A, B, C, D, right. And depending on which one you live in, maybe somebody out there, guys, got a whole lot of influence, with some of these southern states. and we can get them to change that fee for us. But right now, this is what they are, and these are the allowables and what Medicare allows and what they pay and what the patient is. So
in November of 2017, I should mention, because we do record all these webinars. They go on our YouTube page. They go in our Dental Sleep Solutions DS3 experience, where people can snoozle these webinars. So if you're watching this 5 years from now, obviously those fees may be outdated.
I hope they are, Guy. I hope they're a lot higher 5 years from now.
Outdated in the right direction is what we're hoping for, right? Outdated and more. So, which I think there's a chance it will, as we educate the people who are in charge of this. They're learning more about. There's more to this than handing someone a piece of acrylic, and the fees really should be a little bit higher. So, here's the choices if you want to become a Medicare provider. I want to rephrase that. Here's the choices if you decide to make a mandibular advancement device for an apneic patient who has Medicare as their health insurance. You're supposed to choose one of these, whether you want to or not. The moment you make that mandibular advancement device on that Medicare patient who has a diagnosis of apnea, you're supposed to have chosen one of these three options. And we're going to come back to this slide in a minute. I think the first one's the easiest to opt out. Do you know any practices have done this lately, Rich? Or I don't really understand why.
I think we're seeing less and less people do this, Guy. I think, and one of the reasons for that is because there's people like us out there explaining how to do this better. I think some people, they're like, oh my gosh, here's a Medicare patient, I have to do something, right? So remember, if you opt out, it is a contract that you sign, and it does not change for 2 years. When you opt out, it's not like next month you can say, hey, I changed my mind. I don't want to do this. So you got to be real sure that you just do not want to deal with Medicare patients. And when you opt out, you are opting out of Medicare. It's saying, I'm not going to participate. I'm not going to file insurance. You're saying that all of the patients that I see, I'm going to hand them a notice that tells them that I've opted out, and they can't bill Medicare either. So that notice is designed to help the patient understand that when they come to see you and you've opted out, that they're not going to get duped, or there's no deceit there, and that they're going to be treated and they think that insurance is going to pay when it's not. So remember, when you opt out, you are out. You can't bill, the patient can't bill, and you have to use this advanced beneficiary notice. You can get this
can't just contract. Hold up. Yeah, I opt out. Yeah, there is paperwork. So I this others it's maybe slightly leaving even in our region $1,000 on the table on every Medicare patient. It's just kind of a disservice. Doing this is. We want to go over it. And by the way, I want to mention there's more than one area of Medicare. Everything we're talking about today is durable medical equipment. We're not talking about Part B. We're not talking about the prescription Medicare. It has to do with durable medical, and talking about for that division of Medicare, not the other ones. All right.
You're cutting up a little bit there, Guy. I'm not sure if it's my internet or yours, but yeah, moving right along. You opt out. It is a 2-year contract. You can get into that, and you can do it. So again, we're kind of at this point where we got to decide. If I was a cardiologist, Guy, and 98% of my patients were over 65, I'd have to become a Medicare provider. I'd have to do that, and it's a time-consuming application process that you got to do, and What is it, 67 pages, something like that?
Yeah, I've got it coming up here. I think it's at least 27, even in a small print format, if you can still hear me.
Okay now.
Yeah, I was cutting out. I don't know what was going on, maybe just a little internet glitch. See where people were saying that. So hopefully that's over with. So the other, if you're going to opt in, then you are obligated to follow the Medicare guidelines we're going to go through. And there's really 2 ways to do this. You can participate or non-participate. I did cut out for a moment, Rich. You didn't address those 2 yet, did you?
No.
Okay, so if we're going to do this, you see how we have non-participating highlighted? Why
did you do that?
Because that's what we recommend you do. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. I mean, this is what most offices we would say It's your choice. We'll educate you on all the options. Whatever you want to do is up to you and your team to decide. But we have a strong bias to becoming a non-participating provider is the best option, because as a participating provider, if you choose option 1, you get no benefits for your patient. Option 1, under the becoming a provider, you have to accept that allowable amount. So here in Florida, it's $1,070. So Rich and I can get paid no more on any cases than $1,070. We'll get the 80% will come to us from Medicare. The other 20% will come from supplemental insurance most of the time. And if they don't have it, then they pay us that 20%. We should not balance bill the patient. But now as a non-participating provider, we actually have 2 choices. So once we become a non-participating provider, we can accept assignment of benefits on a case. And if you click that little box in DS3, it's in the patient info section on your form that's on the Medicare form. I don't know exactly which box it is off the top of my head, but
27.
27, good job. So the checks are going to come to me. And for that case, for that one patient, basically I am a participating provider. So that's just like being a participating provider. So if I want to be a participating provider, I can do it on every case if I want to. If I want to help the patient out because they have a financial hardship, if the physician just referred me this patient and I want to make a good impression on them, if the patient really can't afford more treatment reasons or good reasons, I'll accept the $1,069, $1,070 we'll call it here in Florida, on the patients. But if that's want to accept the assignment and I want to balance bill the patient, then you don't check assignment of benefits, and then what happens, Rich? We make more money, right?
Usually. Yes. Well, what that means then, number one, okay, I'm not constrained anymore, Guy, by that $1,070 in our jurisdiction. I can now balance bill the patient the difference. So remember, if I'm a Medicare provider or I do the this participating part of this, then I get the checks and I can't make more than that. If I'm non-participating now, and that's that box 27, all that is if you check yes or no. So when you check no, then now the check goes to the patient. So Medicare is going to assume, okay, that the patient paid you, so they're going to pay the patient. So remember, the checks go to the patient. We don't always do that. We don't always collect that money up front, but we make them sign something that says, hey, these checks are going to come to you. We give them a self-addressed stamped envelope so that these things come back to us. But the real benefit of this, Guy, is that we're not confined by just that $1,070. Or if we're in the Northeast, it's $1,800. I never have figured out why theirs is so much higher than ours, Guy. But
I don't either. And we're going to show you an example of how you can kind of use this whether you want to accept it or don't accept it in real life with some made up dollars and cents here at the end. So I think this will make a little more sense to you. But the take home message is you have 3 options. Our strong bias is to become a non-participating Medicare provider, and then you have the option to flop back and forth per patient as you seem fit. If you want to do this on your own, here's where you do it. Take a screenshot of this, get your phone out, take a picture of it. If you don't have time to get it, email us or set up for a free consultation, and we'll teach you or point you in the right direction. I think you're going to spend a lot of time doing this. Most people who have a third-party biller, like one of our favorites, 4-Pillar Billing, can help you with this. They'll do this for a fee, and they can get it done a little bit quicker and a whole lot less hassle, because they do. I was in there in the insurance talking to them today, and they have 10 applications they're doing right now. So you do something a lot, you become good at it and a little bit more efficient. So it is worth considering paying a third-party biller to do this for you, just because it's kind of a hassle. There's nothing terrible about it, but you'll forget to fill out one spot, and then they'll kick it back, and then you'll be behind again. And it's going to cost you, even if you don't pay a third-party biller. I think the current fee, I checked into this, it could change at any moment, but is about $560. You do have to go down and the police station and get fingerprinted. I know it's kind of like Big Brother there, but you've got to do that. And this, I don't know how long this is, but this was the PDF that they provided to me. The Four-Pillar Billing gave me a copy of, and I didn't read the whole thing, but it's 27 pages long from that small print. So it is a little bit of a hassle. So again, getting someone to help you with that might, if you be in your best interest. So once you get that off to them, you're not finished. I think this is the thing that scares people the most, don't you? Is this, they're going to come visit you, and when I tell people that, oh no, I don't want Medicare coming to my office. Oh, then
it's not that bad. I just moved into a new office, and I had to kind of redo a lot of this, guy. So, they show up and they just want to know. I mean, think about you got an old guy coming to your practice. I mean, if you just think about it. How could you make it more convenient for him? Well, put your hours on the door. Make sure your license is up and updated and all that other kind of stuff. You got to have your liability insurance. You got to have the lab invoices. So there are certain little boxes here. The written complaint log for patients. Written complaint resolution protocols. How do we do this if a patient has a complaint? I don't know, Guy. I'm thinking, in an hour or so, you could certainly do this. I know most of the third-party billers who do this, the application process for you, part of that is them counseling you on what you need for that site visit. And I'll just tell you, it's not bad. It is.
If you have everything on here listed, it's easy because they come in. They really don't know what they're doing either because they don't do a lot of these. I mean, they don't. It's probably the first dentist office they've been in. And if it's not the first, it's one of the first few. So they kind of come in and they just have this little checklist. And I tell you, the one that people get pinged on the most is the first one. You've got to, outside the door, put we're available to see patients, and has to have your office hours posted outside the door. And they always, for whatever reason, that's the one they want to ping people. And they don't ping you. They just say, fix it, take a picture of it, and send it to us. It's very, very, I want to emphasize, this is, I think it's going to end up being a double negative. I'll apologize ahead of time. But this is not a reason not to become a Medicare provider. It's you shouldn't let this scare you away from it. It's a very easy, benign process if you have the things we're going to go through here. And a couple of these we're going to clarify. You have to have Homecare Instructions, and we have all the forms and everything for our DS3 members. And if you want some information on that, by all means, just type in consultation, and we'll clarify some of these. But heck, you need this anyway, right? I mean, this is something, if you're going to be delivering dental sleep devices, it would behoove us to have Homecare Instructions for them. So they'll check that. This Medicare Supplier Standards is just something that you have to post and have in your little book. It's just something that you have to have. It's just a matter of just obtaining it. That's not a big deal. I think the warranty is something that you should at least read what you're giving to the people. But Rich, you have everybody fill these out, I'm assuming, on your Medicare patients?
Yeah, we just have a little stack of papers, Guy, that for Medicare, we have a folder, and this is what we do, and this is what we use. And, I mean, there are Medicare guidelines all the way from when they get a sleep test to when you give them a dental device and all of that. And they're not that complicated. There's just a couple of things that you have to have. This is why we always recommend that, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. This is why Guy and I started Dental Sleep Solutions and the DS3 experience. That's what we do, is help people do this. This is something that if you sign up with a third-party biller, they will help you do.
Right.
Okay? If you don't do that, you got to have somebody in your office who's willing to take the bull by the horns and go get all this stuff.
Right. And then you have to have a complaint log. And, this is, you can look at ours here, what we have. And, it's if a Medicare patient has a complaint, then you have to have a procedure to document that anyone who'd ever did an inspection in the future could come in and quickly look and see, who's had an issue here. And, we don't have that many issues, but it's good to have this documentation. They're going to ask, even at your, again, this is all for that site visit, do you have this in place? And you just got a folder that has, like Rich said, all these forms in there readily available. And then you need to have a protocol, written protocol to resolve the complaints. And again, it's just, what are we going to do if there's someone's not happy with treatment? What are the protocols? for that. And again, this is just paperwork that you obtain one time and keep in your folder. And when they come in for the site inspection, they look at it, go, "Yep, Dr. Drake has that." It's just
that simple, isn't it? Did you see one of the docs guy in the questions there? He said, "Hey, a guy showed up. He walked in, took a picture of an operatory chair, and he said thanks and left." So
yeah,
you're right. They don't know what they're doing half the time. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. So you're going to be way ahead of them if you have all of the stuff that we're talking about here tonight. And if you can't get to this, we do record these, don't we, Guy? And we put them on our YouTube channel. We also encourage you to type in consult, because we'll reach out to you and we'll go through your sleep practice and see if you're a good fit for what we do. Because our 4 pillars are screening, testing, treating, and billing. We started that a long time ago, didn't we, Guy? Those 4 pillars, and we do that through education, coaching, software, and support. So we keep saying you don't have to reinvent the wheel here, and we want you to check us out because we can help you.
Yeah, and if you just want some help, we will answer your questions. I mean, I think we're about giving value and showing how we can help you. Hopefully this webinar is valuable to you. And certainly we'd like to show how we can be more valuable. But I promise you, just type in consultation, and you just have some questions that, we're going through this fairly quickly that we don't clarify about this or anything else dental sleep related. You're going to get some great advice for as long as, for the half hour or so they set up to talk to you. And I promise you'll feel it's worthwhile time. So we're not going to talk about the devices too much in detail. We have a whole hour on devices we do, but the 2 devices that we recommend, that categories, and there's different iterations of these, is the forms of the Herps device and the TAP device, and the TAP 3 Elite, the Dream TAP. Different iterations, as we say. And there's a lot of labs that we work with, from Respire to Dynaflex that we use, and a bunch of different labs that do these devices, but they have to be approved by Medicare. So you just make sure you're using a Medicare approved device, and these are the 2 that we would recommend. And we can talk about the pros and cons of those for an hour, because we do. Just Google that. Go to our YouTube page, and there's you can find a webinar where we talked about those devices. So, Rich put a lot of these slides together because he got audited recently. And, strangely enough, if you just have everything in order for Medicare, an audit's a breeze too. And so he went back and looked at the Medicare guidelines and made sure we weren't missing anything. And there's a lot of stuff on these slides. I don't like slides of a lot of words, but again, you can come back and refer to these, and if you want to watch the recording of this. But let's kind of break it down for you. Don't let all the numbers and everything on here scare you. It's pretty simple when you look at it. But I'll let Rich. Why don't you describe this?
So let's think about, you got an old guy getting his teeth cleaned, guy, and he's laying there snoring, and you go, "Hey man, have you ever had a sleep study?" No, but my wife said I should because I stopped breathing. So think about that guy, okay? Well, that guy's going to walk through the door, 100,000 times tomorrow somewhere in the United States. He needs a sleep test. So remember, with Medicare patients, they got to see their MD doctor, their real doctor, not their dentist, okay? They got to see the MD. They have to have that face-to-face. He needs to order the sleep study. It doesn't have to be an in-lab study. It can be a home sleep test. And then once you have the sleep study, if you're mild or moderate, you've got to meet certain criteria. So just remember, you can take a picture of this. You can contact us, and we'll get this slide to you. We're trying to break this down and make it simple, okay? So remember, for mild to moderate, they have to meet a certain criteria. For severe, they really need to at least attempt CPAP, or they need to sign something that says there's no way I could use it, okay? Then the MD has to write the prescription and order the dental device. So we need that on file, guy. We got to have that, right? So think about, this is a guy that you screen in your practice, and we're trying to walk him through our treatment protocols to where we treat him. So Medicare is different. You got to do it different for Medicare. So, if this wasn't a Medicare patient, guy, we might do a sleep test, and we might do a couple other things, okay, depending on our state board and a couple other things. But with Medicare, you got to remember, they see their doctor orders the study, they have to meet certain criteria, you have to document the comorbidities. If it's severe, they need to at least try CPAP first or say they can't do it. Then they have to write the prescription for it. And now the dentist has to do that and bill for it. And lastly, you have to use one of those few devices. Now, more and more of the dental devices are getting Medicare approval. So we can update that list, and we will do that occasionally. But right now, I don't know, Guy, I can't make it any more simple than that.
I think you did a great job. The only thing I would clarify is that moderate, so if their AHI is above 15 and not severe, you don't have to have those comorbidities. So that's actually the easiest one. To have an AHI of 20, that checks off this area here. And then you still have to have the other ones. And the comorbidities, I'll mention on that, almost everyone has hypertension, especially in Medicare patients. So if they have hypertension, that's a comorbidity that qualifies. If not, sleepiness qualifies. So between those two, you usually have a comorbidity if the AHI is between 5 and 14. So, and I'll clarify this 30 events or 10. That means 30 events total throughout the night and 10 events total throughout the night, which I almost wish they didn't have this in here because it's a bit confusing. Because if your AHI is 15 and you have a test over 2 hours, then you're going to have over 30 events. So what they're basically saying is they want at least 2 hours of test data. Right. So I don't let that, we always get questions about that. So it's really to clarify. Rich, I think that made it really, really clear. And those aren't hard to get. Most of those things come on the sleep test and through proper documentation. We just do, and we try to do this on all of our patients. The more we follow the Medicare guidelines, the safer we are even for commercial insurance. Number one thing, they have to have a diagnosis of apnea, obstructive sleep apnea, G47.33. You cannot get reimbursement from Medicare unless they have that. If you have an older diagnosis, 327.23 might be the diagnosis. And one of the questions that came through is, how old can a sleep test? I learned something from Lisa at 4-Pillar Billing a few weeks ago that for Medicare, it can be an older test. They're okay. Yeah. Commercial insurances want one within the last few years, but as long as they have apnea, Medicare decides, well, they're smart enough to know that, and I don't say Medicare is smart enough a lot of times, but here we can say they're smart enough to know that most of the time apnea is still there or gets worse. So I
will add one thing to that, Guy. The one thing when we were audited by Medicare was that we had a patient had a sleep study that was 8 years old, and they had been using CPAP. They were struggling with it, but they were at least using it. And therefore, they did not need a new sleep test. So one of the only caveat to that is if you got a patient that had a sleep study 10 years ago and they haven't done anything about it, it's possible they lost weight or they had surgery and they don't have it anymore. So that's the only caveat to that.
And honestly, I want a sleep test. If it's been 10 years ago, I want one anyway. I treated an endodontist yesterday. I saw an endodontist and he was like, well, why do you need a new sleep test? You know, I had one 7 years ago. I said, well, what about if you saw an abscess that was 7 years old? Would you accept that x-ray? Would you want to take a new one to see what's going on in that tooth before you stick a file down? And he said, good point. I understand. I'll get a new sleep test. So
what's an abscess, Guy?
It's been so long since you've done dentistry. Yeah. He understood the analogy quite well, though. So anyway,
who's that guy, man?
Yeah, that's your patient, isn't it? I think this guy's more famous than anybody ever wore CPAP. You see this picture a lot. But if they're not going to wear the CPAP and they're severe, then you need to document why they can't. And there's other reasons for this. Some of these questions might lead us to believe that they may not do well with a dental device if they're highly claustrophobic and other issues. Also, it might help us if we want to do combination therapy. There's information on there that's beneficial. But from a documentation standpoint, we need this filled out in order to get the dental device covered if it's severe. And now we fill it out even if it's not severe for our mild to moderate patients as well. I assume you do the same, Rich?
Well, Guy, we're just in the groove with Medicare. It's like, man, here is A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And if we do that every single time, man, we are covered with anybody, anywhere, anytime. So that's why I like these Medicare guidelines. You know, you can cheat a little bit, right? And human nature is we want to cut a few corners and things like that occasionally. But the great thing about these Medicare guidelines, Guy, is if you do it this way, you are going to survive any audit from anybody, anywhere, anytime, because you're just above the bar with everything.
And I know for those of you who are kind of new to this, it sounds like a lot of information. It really isn't that difficult to do once you have a system. That's why DS3, that's what we put together to make this easy in a system. It's just a matter of having the paperwork in order and your systems in order. The written prescription, we have a pretty easy way of doing that too, where we actually have our own prescriptions and letter of medical necessity that we can fax over to the primary care, and it has everything you see here on the screen already filled out, and all they have to do is sign it and send it back. So we just make it really easy for them to provide this for us. So that way, if they send over a prescription and it's missing something here, then we don't have to call them back and say, oh, you're missing something. They fill it out on our form, but they sign it. We know we have the information here that we need. And this really should come from the primary care ideally, or is like, what do you call it, Rich? I like what you say. It's from their, what's the word you use?
We call it your best MD. You know, we always say, who's your best MD? And by that, we mean, who do you have the best relationship with? You know, some people, that's cardiologist. You know, I had my heart replaced, right. Or, you know, I had 4 stents put in 3 different times, and I see the guy every 3 months. So we call it the best MD.
Got it. Yeah, and you know, the Medicare, you know, they want us to be working, and I think it's not the wrong thing. It's the right thing to do. We want to work with their best MD and all their MDs, but whoever else is overseeing their medical care, we want them to be on the same page with this. So again, a lot of these things we do, the majority of them for our commercial patients, and frankly, even for patients who have no insurance at all, because these guidelines aren't like ridiculous. They're actually some of the best practices as far as communication with your physicians. And the physician's notes.
Yeah, the thing you got to remember, you know, and we want to get paid, Guy. We always say we need a copy of the sleep study. We need the prescription. So we just shorten prescription for, it's actually the referral, it's the prescription, and it's the letter of medical necessity. So what you got to remember is that just because we have something from the physician that says, hey, I'm prescribing a dental device for Guy Yatros, I'm referring him to Dr. Drake, it's medically necessary to treat it, and it's needed for lifetime. That's what's needed. Those are the 4 things that are needed. But Medicare makes a very specific point to say that, look, all of the documentation from the physician and the dentist needs to support the medical necessity. Just because you get that note doesn't necessarily mean that Medicare can't come back and take that away. So we, you know, when we start that conversation and we do that, we sometimes we'll ask for the note from the MD. Usually we will just do that ourselves. Right. So we provide the documentation ourselves. What kind of stuff would that be, Guy, for medical necessity? Sleepy, tired?
Right. Yeah, part of what we call our questionnaire that they fill out online through the web portal covers all that. It, you know, covers sleepiness, tiredness, inability to wear CPAP, medical conditions, and so your note needs to support that this is medically necessary for them treating their apnea, and you certainly need to document that as well. We again make that real easy through our system of DS3, and this is something, Rich, I used to not do until the last few years, and I guess as I started working more with the 4-pillar billing and other billing companies, I realized I wasn't doing this. I was always taking a picture of the device to prove I did it, but this is much better.
I guess that's not good enough. A custom-made dental device in their mouth with a picture.
Yeah, well,
does it get any better than that?
I didn't know this form was, and I do this on all my patients now who have any insurance whatsoever. And basically, this is just saying that you received the dental device. My mother got oxygen recently, and you know, it's the same thing. It's durable medical equipment. They bring the oxygen tanks to her. She has to sign that, yes, I received the oxygen tanks. They don't want us, I guess it's to help prevent Medicare fraud and people billing for things that they didn't do.
You know why that is, Guy? It's because unfortunately, our dental devices come under DME, durable medical equipment. That's like an oxygen tank or a wheelchair. So you can take a wheelchair out there and give it to anybody, right? But they don't seem to understand that our custom dental device, you know, if it goes in their mouth, that's the way it is. Yeah. So again, we're trying to break it up into, you know, if we have all of these things in a row here and we have this, we just go down the list, and it's not that bad. It's
not hard, and there's nothing difficult on here. It's just filling out forms and making sure that you have these for each of your patients. The advanced beneficiary notice is probably the most confusing, and we're going to try to break that down for you right now. But again, these are just forms that you have to make sure that are filled out for each of your patients. And by the way, I want to mention before I forget it, we do not bill out medical insurance of any kind until the day we deliver the devices. So these forms are filled out at the date of delivery. They can be filled out before, that's fine, except for the proof of delivery obviously has to be on the proof of delivery. We just do it the day we deliver, and you should not, cannot, will not bill the Medicare or other medical insurances until you actually give them the device on that day. The advanced beneficiary notice, we're gonna kind of go through this form in more detail than we've probably ever done in the past. It's really to notify the patient of their options with Medicare. And that's the purpose of it, from my understanding. And you've got to hold on to these for 5 years. Do you have more to say about what the purpose of it is? We're going to go through the form itself, Rich.
Well, I think the easiest way for me to understand this guy is if I'm a little old lady and I come in and I say, hey, Dr. Yatros, can you make me a dental device? And you say, yes, we can. We're going to check no on box 27. So the checks are going to come to you and we're going to balance bill you. Is that okay? Yeah. She doesn't know what you're talking about. Right. So I always think of the advanced beneficiary notice as it's designed to protect the patient so that they don't get billed for a whole bunch of stuff that they didn't know they were going to get billed for. It's not any more complicated than that. So you can get this. Where do you get these, guys, so we can point them in the right direction?
I don't know. From our billing company.
From billing company.
Yeah. So if you need to know where to get these, just send us an email, type in consult. We can talk to you about how to fill this out, or info@dentalsleepsolutions.com, and we'll let you know. I don't really know. I've got a stack of them in the office, and I don't know where they come from. And by the way, if you've been doing this for a long time, they updated this form slightly over the last year, so you might want to make sure you have the most updated form. Now, notice this is kind of color-coded. We just did this for your benefit, and I'll kind of walk you through the parts you fill out on this, and the red is just parts you fill out. That's not the way it is on the form. That's what you would actually put in. And so what you're going to say, basically what we're doing is the E0486, and we're going to call this the procedure. And so here for D, what is the procedure? Well, it's a mandibular advancement device. So that's what you're going to type in or write in on your patient you're treating with OSA with a mandibular advancement device. And one of the reasons, now this may change based on the patient. If you're out of network, if you've opted out, you would put here where, we've opted out here. There could be other reasons, but one reason we commonly use is, that Medicare may not cover it if it's not deemed medically necessary. Maybe they don't have the proper AHI or some of those other things we've already gone over. And here is the estimated cost, and that's how much we're going to bill them for. This is how much they're going to be responsible to pay. And then again, D, you just write procedure in there, and you can read the verbiage here. In order to stay on time, I'm just going to jump down to the part that I think becomes the most confusing. The patient is going to select one of these three options, and they're going to write procedure out here for that particular option. And depending on whether they want us to, whether they want to do the procedure or whether they're okay with not getting coverage if the checks go to them, you pick one option. So most of my patients, you're going to choose option 1 or 2, certainly not 3, unless option 3 is for a patient who says they don't want this procedure. This is always the only thing that hasn't really made sense. You want them to sign a piece of paper saying, we've opted not to do this in your office on the way out the door. That one's always kind of bothered me, but you're supposed to get them to sign this if they choose not to do the dental device in your office as well. Do you want to explain option 1 and 2? Or do you want me to, Rich?
No, I just want to do this. I might have to pay now, but I want Medicare to be billed, right, and a decision to be made. There's this Medicare summary notice, but if Medicare doesn't pay, I may be responsible, but I can appeal to Medicare, right, for this. And then option 2 is I want the mandibular advancement device, but do not bill Medicare.
That's if you opt out.
Yeah, if you opt out. So like I said, I've never understood the third part of that. So
right. We're going to select option 1 on most of our patients if we're non-participating. Option 2 would be if you opt out, or maybe if you're doing a procedure that's not a Medicare covered dental device. For some reason, one of those devices aren't indicated and you're doing a different one, you might choose that option. But the vast majority of the time, you're going to choose option 1 and then just type procedure in here. and actually the patient's supposed to select that. You can tell them that's
That was a Freudian slip there, guy.
yeah.
We kind of guide their hand, which option we want them to choose. No, but the idea of that again is, look, you might have to pay for this, but we're also doing a financial arrangement. We're estimating their out of pocket, and we're having them sign a financial arrangement as well, which we would certainly recommend that you do. That advanced beneficiary notice is just one of the requirements. It's just that simple, and you fill out the top part, and the patient chooses the bottom, and you can coach them a little bit. This is what you're gonna. This is what this is, and that's what that means.
Yeah, and so I think when it comes to these questions, they're important. Most of the time, this is their patient's best physician or their primary care, however Rich likes to say it. It certainly can't be us for any of these. It has to be one of their physicians, especially when it comes to Medicare. And Rich, having gone through an audit recently, did great. You probably weren't even that nervous about it because you knew that you do well documenting everything in DS3. If you don't write it down, it didn't happen. So kind of the review here, and we're going to walk through a case about how you would actually have a conversation with money, and then we'll be finished on time here, I believe, if we go on through that. Here's kind of a review of what you need to have in order to make sure that you're going to get Medicare.
Not only to get paid, but so that you get to keep your money.
Right.
I think maybe one of the things that scares people, Guy, about medical insurance in general is, and we're seeing this happen a little bit more, is if you do this and they pay you, they have the right to come back later and audit you. And if you didn't do it right, they can ask for their money back.
Right.
So that's a real good incentive for us to simply play the game the way that they've laid the rules out. And we have tried to make that as simple as we can. You got to have that Medicare folder. You got to have all those forms in there. You got to, get your 855S. You're going to non-participate. You're going to do all this kind of stuff. And I don't know, Guy, if you've been watching that question thing, but my gosh, we never see so many questions as when we do Medicare stuff. I mean, they just flying through there.
I've been looking at it periodically. We'll get to all of them, and we'll be happy to stay on a little after 9.
Thank goodness our staff is getting, the people that are smarter than us are answering most of those. A lot of
our team from 4-Pillar Billing is answering a lot of those as we go, and we'll get to all those. And if we don't completely clarify it, feel free just to talk to us about it. We will, no pressure, sit down and answer your questions. We really want to help. I think we add a lot of value to dental offices, and we enjoy seeing you succeed. So that checklist, if you didn't get a chance to write all that down, we'll send you a copy of it if you want. Just email us. But if you have those in all your patients and you document that well, you've got no worries. And it's not that difficult once you get the paperwork in order. Every one of my patients, this is what happens. And it's just it's no different than filling out an exam form and all the things that you do for your dental patients. It's just maybe a little unfamiliar. So this is a flow sheet I kind of came up with. And let me kind of walk a patient through this flow sheet, because it may not make sense to you. In order to use this flow sheet, you've got to establish 3 things, which we're going to talk about right now. You need to establish what it is that you really want to do this to make you happy. So your cash fee, what it is. If it was just Guy's world here, and I would just charge everybody the same, and they would just come in and pay me, what would I be happy to make on each case that comes in. And then there's also sometimes where I'd say, we still make money at a less than that fee, and I'm willing to do that when the patient needs help, and rather than let them leave with a serious medical disorder, and we still make some money. So I kind of need to know what the minimal fee is that we still are happy to do it and make a profit, because I have what I really love to have, but what I'm still okay to do it with, where I'm still making some money. And you have to figure these out yourself, by the way, but we can help you with that. We have a whole exercise which we don't have time for today, but we can certainly help you with that. We have an example coming up. Now, the Medicare allowable amount, you don't have to guess, because we know that.
Whatever jurisdiction you're in, that's what it is.
Right, and then so we already can go back to those slides. If you don't have them, we'll be happy to supply them to you. And then I calculate what I've come up with called the MOP, the maximum out of pocket. And let me kind of walk you through this. And don't put any credence in these numbers. These numbers have nothing to do with my fees, what we recommend that you charge, what the normal fees are, nothing. We just pick some numbers that were in the middle of the road that were easy to calculate. And let's say that you're happy to do this for $2,500, but at $1,500, you're still making enough money to make it worth your while to get up in the morning and show up at the dental office, okay? In Florida, the Medicare allowable amount's $1,070. Okay, so what you do is to find out if I want $2,500, then all I have to do is some simple math, subtract the $1,070 out of that, and I'm going to get $1,430. So that's the patient's amount that they're going to have to pay. So if I don't check assignment of benefits, I tell the patient to give me $2,500, they're going to get $1,070 back. At the end of the day, they're going to be out $1,430. If I can go down to my minimal fee, which is the minimal amount I like to have before I start maybe not making the profit that I need to keep my business alive, is $430 by just doing the simple calculation by those two fees. So let's walk through how you can do this in your office. So the patient comes in, we tell them our fee. Here's what our fee for this is, whatever that is. In this case, we plugged in the $2,500. And we tell them that you're going to get it's $1,070 covered. Now it's assuming they have supplemental insurance. Rich, in my area, I'll bet it's 49 out of 50 have supplemental insurance, if not 99 out of 100. Is it true in your area?
Yeah, a lot of them do for sure.
Yeah. So that's assuming that. If they don't, then it's 20% more. We have to clarify that. But the vast majority of them have some supplemental insurance. And so now understanding sometimes the supplemental insurance will cover up to the billed amount, up to the $2,500 in this scenario, but we don't always know that. After you do this a while, like Rich said, you may know which ones do. If the patient says, yeah, I'm fine with the $1,430 cash outlay, you schedule them, and then you basically ask them to pay you, and the checks go to the patient, and they're going to get that money back, and you still want to make sure that they receive their money from Medicare, that everything went through. But at the bottom line is it's easy, and a lot of patients will do that in my practice. But occasionally a patient says, I can't afford this, or I only have to pay a few $100s to have a CPAP, and I think I might try that instead. Or maybe the patient said, I thought it was going to be this much, and the patient is coming from a physician that I want to try to make sure he sends me more patients. And we can reduce it down to say, somewhere $430 in this scenario, or $500 if you wanted to make an even number, and let them know that that's how much their out-of-pocket's going to be. And again, we cannot accept assignment of benefits. The checks are going to go to the patient. We collect the money, and they're out less money this way. And in other words, we would reduce the amount that their MOP would be by $1,000. And now we schedule them for treatment as well. But the beauty of Medicare is if the patient says there's no way I can afford any money, I can get my CPAP for free, and if I can't do this for no cost, or I just can't afford this and I've tried CPAP, I've had a heart attack, can you help me out here, doctor? You can accept the assignment of benefits, and you're going to get the $1,070. And even in my practice, Rich, we do this, I don't know if weekly, but probably weekly we do this for cases that I want to help them out. I want to help my referral source out, and we still make money, at least in my practice, at that amount. And we do it when we have to. I don't think we could keep our practice afloat as the way we'd like to if we did every patient that way, but we do it. And so between these different routes, can you see why it is that, that we love Medicare? Because it's rare that a Medicare...
Yeah, we've got options.
It's rare that a Medicare patient doesn't schedule. I mean, usually it's because they're not a good candidate. They don't have enough teeth. Their jaw doesn't move. They have a contraindication for dental sleep therapy, which is a whole nother webinar. It is very rare that a Medicare patient will come in our office that we can't find a way to treat them, because we're going to get between our billed fee and $1,070 on these patients, and it's okay to get different amounts for different patients. Medical you've got to get a little bit more used to that, because that's the way the medical world works. So, anything to add on that, Rich? Before we?
No, I love your example there. We just remember we have options. With Medicare, I think the best way to remember Guy, if we check that we're not going to accept assignment of benefits, then we're not going to get the check. You know, I had such a hard time trying to remember which one that was, and that's what I finally got in my own head. If we do not accept assignment of benefits, then we're not going to get the check. Remember, the check then goes to the patient. But I love what you put in there, Guy, about the cash fee and the minimal fee. I think we need to be smart business people too. So, you know, Guy, he's showing you what a good heart he has, because in his office, a little old lady comes in and he says, man, yeah, I'm going to do this for her because she's got Medicare and she's got supplemental and it doesn't cost her anything. Now, you mentioned one thing, Guy, I want you to expand on just a little bit. You said, sometimes I do this because of who referred the patient or my referral source. What in the world does that have to do with it?
Yeah, so again, we're talking about if we go down the accept assignment. I want to reiterate what you just said. This path and this path, we don't accept assignment of benefits because we were getting more than the LCD for my area, which is 1,070. And so it's just a matter of varying that amount. This one, we're accepting an assignment of benefit. That means the patient's Medicare check comes to me, supplemental check comes to me, the patient usually pays nothing. And why do we do that? Yes, to help someone else, but also maybe I've talked to a physician, I've gone over, met with him and his team, I've showed them my dental devices, they're like, great, do you accept Medicare? Yes, we do. Sometimes the patients have to pay depending on their supplemental, but yes, we accept Medicare. That physician sends me that first patient, and the patient walks through the door and goes, oh, he says you accept Medicare. And you know what I say? Yes, we do. And the first patient that they send over, and probably the next 2 or 3, we just say, well, yeah, we accept assignment, and we don't even discuss these other 2 paths until that relationships get nice and strong, and then we can start having these other conversations with the patient. Because you know what? They go back to that doctor and go, it was wonderful. I didn't have to pay anything. We send them letters and all the other things that DS3 does well. And next thing you know, that physician's sending me a ton of patients. So those are 2 of the reasons that the patient really can't afford it. We want to help them out for whatever reason, and then we can accept that. And I can tell you, if I lived anywhere but Florida or Texas, if I lived in one of those higher paying LCDs, I would do that a lot more. It's about $200 or $300 less than I really like to get. So I mean, it's just those other areas where you're getting $1,300 or more. I could find a way to make that quite profitable through the efficiencies that we have doing this through our DS3 system. Speaking of efficiencies, we want to make sure that you all know about the symposium that we're having in the North American Dental Sleep Medicine Symposium that DS3 is putting on for the 2nd year in Clearwater, Florida. It's a beautiful venue, the Hilton, right on the beach. And I can tell you, you will never, ever get more dental sleep experts with real practical how you do this in your practice together in one spot than you get at the symposium for an incredibly low price, under $500 for a dentist to come. If you decide you want to come, you register by the December 25th and mention this, you can save $25. We got a pretty good room rate. Those are running low, that $250 a night right on the beach in February, which is pretty low here in Florida. So, I mean, you can look at the speakers here, and for those of you who know about dental sleep, you know these are some of the country's experts. It had rave reviews last year. For those of you who don't know dental sleep, trust me, these are some of the country's experts, and they're going to be giving 1 hour. Here's a pearl, an hour's worth of pearls on how you do dental sleep in your practice. So we hope that you all can sign up for that.
Great meeting. It was our inaugural event last year. So, you know, my staff guy, they all want to go this year. So I got 8 people I need to buy a plane ticket for. So I'm not excited about that. But I will tell you, they're very excited about going to Florida in February. So I hope you'll check into that. And I hope you guys will. You know, many of you have typed in consultation tonight. Like I said, Guy, the questions were going wacko here with all of that stuff. We got a lot of good questions tonight. But, you know, this is what we do. We help dentists succeed in dental sleep medicine. You know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. For what you pay us, you make 1 or 2 dental devices a year, and you pay for all of our services. And, you know, who you going to call, Guy, when you have one of those 1,000 questions that you have the first year that you do this? That's who we are. We're the ones you call.
Yeah, and if you want to know more, again, type consult in, and we'll be happy just to hear your challenges and see if we can help. What we do is make you efficient at this. I think for those of you who don't know the history of DS3, Rich has been doing this for 18 years. I've been piddling with it for the first 7 years out of 17 years or so. I've been doing it, and I couldn't find a way to really make it profitable in my practice until Rich and I got together and learned how he was doing things, and I found a way to put this in my dental practice and really make it profitable. And you do that by being efficient. This is not difficult. It's an efficiency. This is an efficiency exercise to be successful in dental sleep. That's all there is to it. And that's what we teach you how to do. And you can spend less than an hour of dentist time with these patients and give them quality service through the DS3 system and provide a life-saving quality service that's going to make their lives longer and better, and while you can become profitable. And that's what the DS3 experience is. And again, you can add a ton of income to your bottom line, even if you do as little as one of these a week, which is not much. I mean, we don't have where you should be, which is 2 or 3 of these a week. The amount of income it can add. You just have to have a plan. Here's how you get a hold of us for that as well. I see we got some other questions coming in there. Boy, the 4-pillar team is typing like crazy. I think they're giving.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Guy, I learned something looking through the questions and answers here tonight. I thought I knew something about this, and people asked some really good questions, and there's all kinds of weird modifiers and things, and I learned a couple of things tonight. So thanks for our team of insurance people and that. And again, that's what you get when you sign up with DS3. I mean, that's what we do. We're here to help you do this. Couple of weeks, Guy, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah, this is, I guess we're doing these every other week, but this will be 3 weeks because of the Thanksgiving holiday. We're going to talk about treatment flow. And again, how to be efficient, because this is just an efficiency exercise. We're going to teach you how to become more efficient, how to identify the patients. There's patients right in your practice that need your help, how you get them tested, how you have that difficult conversation. They're there to have their teeth cleaned, and we want to talk to them about getting a sleep test and how that's done, how we document it, and how we work with the medical community to go ahead and get started on their cases, and then, of course, get paid, which we talked a lot about Medicare. We'll talk about other insurances as well. So again, it's free. Sign up. We'll be Rich and I again talking about that. And speaking of free, we try to, I think what we try to do is we do have a business. We do want to help you, and we certainly have a business model that'll help you. But we hope we give enough things away just because we think it's important to contribute and to show you that we can help. This Dental Sleep Medicine Insider isn't exactly along that lines. I mean, it's free. We're just, anybody who wants to subscribe, it'll come to your inbox every other month, and it has videos that we do, articles, and there's just a ton of great information in that magazine. So you just go to dentalsleepinsider.com to sign up. Again, here's how you get a hold of us. And by the way, hopefully you're the Medicare expert at this point. I'll end here on this slide with our contact information. So Rich, not bad for us. 9:06 by my watch.
You did good.
I see if I see some people typing in consult. Again, we'll be happy to do that. Also, I want to mention one more time, our last course is in 2 weeks from Friday. I think it's the 17th of November. Is that what the slide said? Yeah. And Dallas, already got quite a few people coming. I promise you come to the course, you're going to say, wow, that's the most practical course I've ever been to. I'll be personally teaching it myself. And if you really want to know how to put dental sleep in your practice, try to make time to come to that. Even if you got to fly to come to it, I think you'll find that it was worth your time, and you can take this information over the holidays, start getting your systems together to start dental sleep. So.
And Guy, you got to hear that stuff several times before it starts to sink in. I mean, we know that because we teach thousands of dentists how to do this, and that's what we do is help people do this. And we have done the best thing we could possibly do, Guy, which is to surround ourselves with a really good team of people, right? Yeah. Most of you successful dentists out there, you're that way because you hired smart people and they're helping you. You got a good team, and that's what we have is a good team. And I want to give a shout out to our team tonight. Thank you, guys, for answering all those questions.
Yes, thank you, Jason, Jody, 4-Pillar Billing, Lisa. We've got a whole team of dental sleep experts and dental sleep billing experts, and we couldn't do this without them. It's very gratifying to see how we've evolved and how we can really hone dental sleep and these practices to where it becomes something that's easily doable and enjoyable. So let us know if we can help anybody else. Are we getting to all the questions? I don't want to end too early, but I don't want to.
Man, I think we're gonna have to do the chit chat here for a minute, guy, because
they're still coming in. I just opened this.
There's still a bunch of questions, for the most part. So, yeah, we're happy to help you any way that we can, but we hope you certainly got something out of this tonight. Remember, there are certain requirements with Medicare. We tried to walk you through that entire process from not only from which decision you have to make, do you want to opt out or do you want to participate or non-participate? So remember, as a review, our recommendation is that you non-participate, because then you get to pick and choose on that box 27 if you do that or not. And then we went over the different things that you have to do to become a DME supplier, the 855S form and that, and what you need for your site visit, and then all of the forms that you need. So again, we tried to break this down into bite-sized chunks that make it pretty simple. And the great thing about this, really, Guy, I know I already said this once, but if you follow this format and you do this, I'm never going to say you're bulletproof, but I will say you're doing this better than 99.99% of the dentists out there if you're doing this every time with every patient.
And I want to reiterate, it's really the right way of doing it. I mean, maybe there's a little bit extra paperwork that we don't need, but for the most part, most of these things have a really good purpose, I think. It makes us communicate with the medical community properly. Our patients recognize that we're working as a team. It's not bad, and once you understand how these parts fit together, it's quite easy. One of the questions here, who are our third party? Look, someone's getting there. We have other. I see someone just answered it. We have multiple third party billers that we work with through DS3. So to clarify that is, if you have DS3, it makes this very seamless. It's all cloud based, and you don't have to call, fax, email. All the information is seamlessly transmitted to our third-party billers that I see that they listed there. Also at DS3, you can do it yourself. You can submit your own claims. We recommend that you work with third-party billers until you get to the point of being able to do that effectively. And, it's going to take a full-time position for someone to do that. So until you're doing 15, 20 cases a month, it probably doesn't make sense. We do have dentists who transition after a while. We had a dentist who was billing over 6 figures a month, and he had to hire 2.5, I think, people to just do his insurance billing in-house, which he decided to do, which is fine. We're fine, and he still does it through DS3. But, he might not have ever gotten to that point had he started out on his own. So, again, that's the answer to that. I see anything else that we have? I think that's about
nothing that I can answer.
Okay. All right. Well, I think then it looks like the questions are slowing down. If you have other questions, we certainly don't want to leave without answering those. Just send us an email here. Set up a conference call for us to answer them. Any of the slides that you need, because this is the kind of information you might need to refer back to. So we're happy to provide you with any clarification on tonight's webinar, because it's going to maybe take a little bit to sink in. So thanks for spending your time. We look forward to getting with you the week after Thanksgiving. Hopefully it'll be another fantastic subject on dental sleep medicine, and have a great Thanksgiving between now and then. And in the meantime, let us know if we can help.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. We'll see you.
Thanks, Rich. All righty. Bye-bye.